When we talk about sustainability in relation to animal-based products, I think that's had a shift, especially in recent years. But I think 10 years ago, you heard that like vegan or plant-based, you thought maybe tofu. Especially in the past couple years, mainstream people like Richard Branson giving up red meat because of the climate effect. WeWork last year banned meat from their corporate office. So these are very notable news topics. What do you think has made this massive shift in recent years? Anybody?
I think a huge part of that has been connecting our food to other issues, right? I think 10 years ago, people had no idea that animal agriculture was, contributed more to greenhouse gas emissions than all of transportation, right? Than all the cars, planes, ships in the world combined. There are so many more articles now as climate change becomes a much more important issue. People start connecting them to what can we do as consumers on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's something that has really, I think, changed dramatically in the last few years that just did not exist 10 years ago.
If I could add, I mean, we work with the Dairy Farmers of America, the National Pork Board, and we've got a CPG company, and also there's an aquaculture company that we're about to work with. And sustainability is the #1 goal for all of them. And so what they do is we've been actually tracking all the data that comprise sort of 5 elements that are typical that the Rodale Institute uses, for example, like animal welfare, carbon footprint, community-based labor, and business operations. And that is packaged in really a measure of how are farmers really doing on that basis. So granted, cows and pork are significant contributors to methane, and so we're even working with a company that has a very novel way in which they provide governmental credits when you start tracking the methane. And so methane is actually a model that we track, and so that'll tell you a lot about the carbon footprint. And that gets translated into a story for the consumer to go, if I want to be local and I want to support my farmers, but also want to do a better job about how I think about my environment, you actually have evidence. So the point of it is that these big companies that tend to be invisible are really focused on it, are actively looking at technologies and data and methodologies to get there.
So are the farmers providing the data to you, or is it a third party?
These entities are really the middle of the supply chain, so they're co-ops or national organizations, so they actually have access to the data. So in a way, we're looking at a world where we're taking the data going out, as opposed to looking at the way inward.
I would also argue that there are a lot of shifts that have happened from social media, from diets, right? From celebrity chefs doing much more plant-forward menus, where you have Dan Barber, for example, who put meat as a condiment on the plate, and it was very vegetable-forward. And that, coupled with the explosion of companies that have plant-based alternatives that are better than, no offense to Tofurky, but in the past they were just like a couple of options. It was tofu, and now you just have this explosion of companies who are looking at whole new ingredients that can give you a whole new experience. Like one yogurt company that I love, that I'm involved with, is Lava, and they have the pili nut, which is this nut from Southeast Asia that's just absolutely delicious, and that's at the core. It's a really healthy fat, and it creates this amazing emulsification, and pairing that with plantain and coconut to create a whole new yogurt experience. So I think that there's just so much more of that on the market, that when you give people an option there, and people I think like to explore now.
Right.